If I had 60 seconds to share with you a life-changing message about the habit of worrying about what other people think, feel, and do, this is what I'd say. Society taught you that habit, and you learned that habit because it helped you to survive. Unfortunately, today, that habit is keeping you in survival mode, and it's holding you back from thriving in life. Now, fortunately, because you learned that habit, it means that you can unlearn that habit. And instead, you can learn another way. And there is another way, a better way. And that better way starts with this one very important and powerful truth, which is that nobody and nothing has the power to control how you feel. Neither do they control your good, love, peace, or happiness. You alone are responsible for you. And when you discover the truth of that for yourself, when you actually discover this powerful secret that you have already within you, everything that you truly want and need, your life will change irrevocably forever for the better. You will be free of that old painful habit of worrying about what other people think, feel, and do. And instead, you will be focused on what really, truly matters to you. Your life can be a life of real fulfillment. All of that is possible. Now, that's the short version. And for those who are curious and would like to dig a little deeper, then let's get started with that. So I wonder, have you ever considered just how much of your time and energy goes toward worrying about what other people think, feel, and do? Now, if you've never considered that before, you might find it rather shocking to discover just how much of your energy is going to that. It's actually extraordinary, and it has very negative impacts in every area of your life. It obviously negatively impacts your relationships with other people. It negatively impacts your professional life. It holds you back from your full potential. It keeps you playing small. It also, due to the stress, can negatively impact your physical and your mental well-being. So the consequences, the consequences of this habit of worrying about what other people think, feel, and do are actually quite catastrophic. Now, as I said, the good news is that it really is possible to live another way. And I know that that's true because I'm living proof of that. I used to live a life that was characterized by anxiety, and by this desperate attempt or this desperate sense of a need for everybody to like me. I was constantly worried about what everybody else was thinking, feeling, and doing. And what I discovered was that there is another way. And so today, my life is very different than that. Today, I live a life of peace and a life of contentment and a life of happiness that doesn't depend upon other people. It doesn't depend on outer conditions and circumstances. So I know that if I can do it, so can you. It's definitely possible. I'm not extraordinary. If I've learned it, you can learn it. And I can share with you how to do that. So today, in the next hour, what I have planned is to elaborate more on this one powerful truth that I've already shared with you. And then I'm going to share with you 5 practical tips that you can begin to apply in your life so that you can start to get real results beginning today. So I mean, many of you may already recognize yourself in what I've described as worrying about what other people think, feel, and do. And if you can recognize that, then that's fantastic because recognizing that is the first step that allows you to begin to make the transformation so that you don't have to live that way any longer. There might be some of you who are not quite so sure just yet if this applies to you. And so I've put together a series of questions that I'm going to read to you. They're actually on my screen, so I'm going to read them to you. You might notice that I'm going to be reading. And once I've gone through this list of questions, perhaps this will become clearer to you just so that everybody can be on the same page here. So, do you ever fear being abandoned by others? Do you find yourself trying to get validation from others? By the way, if you answer yes to any of these, would you put a yes in the chat or in the comments? Do you worry that you can't be happy unless other people love you? If someone doesn't acknowledge your importance, do you feel upset or uneasy? When other people don't agree with you, do you feel uncomfortable? Do you make decisions based on getting approval from others? Do you experience social anxiety? Do you avoid activities or interactions due to worry of judgment or inability to make everybody happy? Do you feel that it is your job to make other people happy or at ease? Do you feel that it is your job to make sure that other people do the right things or have only good experiences? Do you find yourself overthinking? Do you have negative self talk? Do you feel a need to be right? Do you want to be seen as good or helpful? Do you experience low self esteem? Do you have feelings of unworthiness or not being good enough? Do you feel insecure if others don't want to do what you want to do? Do you ever find yourself unsure of your own values and priorities? Do you ever find yourself trying to impose your values and priorities on other people so that you can feel safe and secure? So, if you answered yes to any of these, and this is not meant to be an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but if you've answered yes to any of these things, then congratulations, you're human. Because I believe that this is a nearly human, universal human malady. I think that, with the exception of perhaps the most supremely enlightened beings and maybe some sociopaths, everybody else on this planet, to some degree or other, suffers from this, what I'm calling this worry about what other people think, feel, and do. And so I think that, well, let me just share. So, in my own experience, I remember when I was 6 years old, one day in school, I was falsely accused of kicking another classmate. And I was sitting in the principal's office where I had been sent, and I remember how very extremely distressed and anxious I was. Now, part of that, of course, was because I was concerned about the punishment that I thought I might receive, but a very big part of it actually had nothing to do with fear of punishment. It had everything to do with being worried about what other people would think about me, because it was really, really important to me that everybody liked me, that everybody thought well of me. And I was really anxious about the concerns that I had, that maybe my teacher would not like me any longer, that maybe my classmates would not like me any longer, that maybe my parents wouldn't like me any longer. I really, honestly was devastated by this, primarily because of my concern about what other people would think. So I can certainly relate to this. Like I said, I think that this is exactly what society has taught us. And as I said at the beginning, we learned that because every single one of us was, at some point in our childhood, we were in some situation, whether it was with our parents at home or it was at school or it was somewhere else. We were in a situation in which it made a lot of sense for us to give a lot of attention and be concerned about what other people think, feel, and do. And as I said at the beginning, that helped us to survive. So it was intelligent. But what happened is we didn't get the update. We didn't get the memo that things have changed. We're no longer 2 years old. We actually have the ability to care for ourselves, and we're not dependent upon people whose whimsy may be scary. And so today is very different. And that's good news, because it means that today we can finally own our birthright and we can actually accept responsibility for ourselves instead of trying to control other people. You see, the big problem is that when we try to control other people, we're trying to do the impossible. Did you ever notice that? I mean, you can't actually control what other people think, feel, or do. If you think that your well-being depends upon what other people think, feel, and do, then it certainly seems as though you must do that, but it's then you're assigning yourself this impossible task, which is extremely stressful. Does that make sense? So, as I say, society taught us this, but there are two major problems with it. And in order to explain these problems, I have a little analogy. So imagine a shopkeeper. And this shopkeeper is somewhat unusual, because this shopkeeper never is actually present in their own shop. Instead, they're in everybody else's shops. They're all over the place in everybody else's shop, and they're over there wondering and worrying. Does this shop have better items than I do? Do the customers like this shop better than they like my shop? And on and on. Well, can you spot the problems? So, number one, because the shopkeeper is not minding their own business, right? They're sticking their noses in other people's businesses. That means that they're not present in their own shop. Now, the function of the shop is to do business, but if the shopkeeper's not there, then the customers can never get in, therefore they can never buy anything. That's bad for business. Now, second problem is that when that shopkeeper is no longer present in their shop, then the looters realize that and they come in and they smash the windows and they steal all the goods and they spray paint over all the walls. So, how on earth does this relate to you and me and this habit of worrying about what other people think, feel, and do? Well, here's what I'm suggesting. So, we have been taught to stick our noses in other people's business instead of minding our own business. And so when we're doing that, when we're worried about what other people think, feel, and do, we're not minding our own business. And as a result, our business suffers. So when you are worrying about what other people think, feel, and do, you're not taking care of your own emotional well-being. You're not taking care of your own dreams, your vision, your aspirations, your goals, your desires. You're not aligning with your values. So your business suffers. Does that make sense? Second problem. So as I said, the looters. Well, what on earth are the looters for us? The looters are that stress, the stress that comes in when we're not minding our own business, when we're thinking everybody else is responsible for how I feel. So we're overcome with that stress, and that wreaks havoc in our lives. As I mentioned earlier, that causes us problems with our physical health, with our mental health. It causes us problems in our relationships. And it also causes us to fail to recognize the options and opportunities that are present for us. And so we stay very small, we stay very limited. We have a lot of limiting beliefs and we think, I can't. It's not possible for me. So we suffer as a result of that. So those are the two problems that I see. So this brings me to this key insight that I've already mentioned earlier on, and I want to go into more detail on this because it's so powerful. This one thing, when you really allow this to click for you, this really does change everything. Because most of us have been programmed to live life in a very distorted way. So I'm going to say something again that I said at the beginning, which is that nobody and nothing has the power to control how you feel. Neither do they have the ability to control your good, love, happiness, or peace. You alone are responsible for you. And that, by the way, is the best news ever because it means you don't have to wait for anything outside of you to change. You don't have to wait for other people to approve of you. You don't have to wait for other people to like you. You don't have to wait for other people to give you permission. You don't have to wait for other people to be comfortable. You actually get to choose right now, if you're willing, to mind your own business, which is the beginning of a whole new life. It really, truly is. So if you think about this, it's really commonplace in our everyday life for people to use expressions like, he makes me so angry, or she hurt my feelings, right? So our language belies the fact that this is how we think. Well, actually, I would say that that's exactly how we've been programmed to think in this way. We learned that that's how it works. We learned that other people get to choose and control how we feel, but it's wrong. It's just not the truth. Now, I know that that's hard to believe sometimes for people, and yet I implore you to be willing to work with this, to just accept that this might really be true and to work with this consistently until it clicks for you, because I assure you that when it does, as I said earlier, your life will change forever for the better. You will actually take back your power that you have been unknowingly giving away nearly every single day of your life since you learned the lie that society taught you, which is that other people control you. So when I was an adolescent, I discovered that there was a standard for beauty that I did not live up to. And so I learned to become ashamed of my physical appearance, particularly my chest. And I worked hard every single day of my life to hide my body underneath my clothes and to ensure that I never, ever encountered any kind of situation in which I would be exposed because I lived in absolute terror of the judgments and particularly the teasing and bullying of others. Now, certainly I did sometimes get that teasing and bullying, and when it happened, I felt very hurt. I felt devastated. And if you had asked me then, Joey, did what those people just said hurt you? I might well have said yes. What they said hurt me, but I would have been wrong. I really would have been wrong because it just doesn't work that way. That's not how life works. I know that that's what society taught you, but it's actually not true. And I'm going to let me propose this because I understand sometimes the objection that people have to this is they say, well, look, you're just excusing all this bad behavior. I mean, the other people should get their act together. They should stop teasing and bullying and judging and all the rest, right? I mean, I understand that. And I agree that that would be a really nice world to live in. And I'm all for doing whatever we can do to support that kind of world because that would be lovely. I would love to live in that world. I would love for my children to live in that world. I would love for every one of you to live in that world. And so let's do everything we can within reason to bring about that kind of world. In the meantime, while it still seems that there are people in this world who are so insecure within themselves that they feel it is necessary to attack others with their words, to lash out, to tease and bully, to say mean-spirited things. While that's still the case, instead of feeling disempowered, instead of feeling deflated, harmed, attacked, brutalized, ashamed, bad, and all the rest, instead of that, how about this? You could actually feel empowered. You could take responsibility and recognize that you have everything that you need and truly desire already present within you, and it does not depend upon other people. Wouldn't that be nicer? I mean, instead of living at the mercy of other people's insecurities, because that's the truth. I mean, just think about it. People act badly because they feel badly. They're already feeling bad within themselves. They're just acting that out because they don't know any other way. But if you then use that in order to feel bad yourself and you blame the world and you say, I have no choice but to feel bad because the world is making me feel bad, then what good comes from that? Are you empowering anybody? Are you helping anybody? No, you're not. You're just hurting yourself. And ultimately, you're not changing the world by doing that. So even though it might be very challenging to accept what it is that I'm proposing here, I promise you that when you work with this, you'll see the truth of it. You'll see the logic of it, and you'll see that it actually is really honestly true. And when you start to really access this on a regular basis, your life will change. I promise that that's true. So you still might have some doubts about this, and I would like to offer you something to allow you to prove to yourself that this might actually be true. So bring to mind, if you will, a time, an event in which you experienced happiness or love, and you thought that the happiness or love that you were experiencing was because of someone or something outside of yourself. So anything that comes to mind, a time when you felt happiness or love, and you thought it was because of something outside of you. Now, notice this. Was the love or happiness that you were feeling inside or outside? And you'll have to admit it was inside, wasn't it? It couldn't have been outside. Now, how did somebody or something outside of you insert that into you? And they didn't, did they? Because it was always there within you. It's just that society taught you that you needed an excuse in order to access it. And so that's how you've been living your life. Now, this works with negative emotions too. So think of a time when you experienced hurt or anger or sadness, and you thought it was because of someone or something outside of you. And notice, where was that feeling? Was it inside or was it outside? And it was inside, wasn't it? Now, again, it seems like because society taught you that somebody outside of you or something outside of you made you feel that way, but it's not possible, is it? Because it was always within you, and nobody and nothing has the ability to do that to you. It's just that you were taught by society that when certain circumstances occurred, that you should generate that feeling and focus on it. And then tell yourself the story that something outside of you made that happen, but it was never true. So now this brings me to the first of the practical tips that I'd like to share with you today. And these are practical tips that you can work with to apply this insight that I've just shared. So the key insight is that you hold the power within you. Everything that you need and want is within you. Nobody and nothing outside of you controls that. So that's the key insight. That is that powerful truth. And these 5 tips that I'm going to share are practical ways that you can begin to integrate that into your life so that this is not just some idea that you heard once from some bearded guy living in apparently in a sauna, but this is actually something that you can begin to live in your heart and in your life so that this can be real for you, so that you can experience this for yourself. So the first of these practical tips is to slow down internally. In other words, mindful awareness. Now, the fact of the matter is, and this might be somewhat surprising to realize, but once you start to notice it, you'll see that it's true, that most people are not actually living and present to what's happening. Instead, they are reacting based on their beliefs about what happened in the past. Again, might seem shocking, but it's actually true. When you start to pay attention, you'll notice that this is in fact real. Because notice, how many times in your life did you misunderstand something? It turns out it's much more often than you realize. And it's because of exactly what I described. Most people are simply on autopilot. They formed beliefs in the past based on their past experiences. So we're not even talking about the reality of what happened then because they weren't present then either. They just formed some beliefs. And then they've been repeating those same beliefs over and over and over and over and over. They just apply them to whatever is happening because there's enough of a pattern match for it to make sense to them. Now, of course, that's worked well enough, again, to help you to survive, but it's keeping you in survival mode. This is really important to understand. You don't want to stay in survival mode. When you stay in survival mode, you feel constantly insecure. Does that make sense? If you're in survival mode, you don't feel safe. But that's not because life's not safe. That's because your programming teaches you that it's not safe. So as long as you continue to operate from that old programming, you can't change anything. That's how important this first tip is. When you slow down internally, when you have more mindful awareness, for the first time in your life, you are able to make change. Until this happens, nothing can change, except for by divine intervention. But if you want to be the agent of change, you have to slow down and become aware. It's just a fact. So, as I said, most people are just operating from their beliefs and they project that onto the present. And just notice what that causes. That causes, first of all, a lot of hurt and pain in you because you're reacting most of those beliefs are based on possible threats that you detected in the past. So you're just looking out there in the world and you're just constantly seeing possible attacks, possible threats, possible dangers. So you're reacting to that. What is that going to do to you? It's going to cause a lot of stress, isn't it? I mean, don't you notice that? So that number one is it's a lot of stress. Number two is that it leads to a lot of misunderstandings, which causes for you a lot of lost opportunities. And it also causes a lot of conflicts in relationships that are completely unavoidable if and when you learn to slow down. Now, I'll share an example of this from my own life. So, about a month ago, I was giving a presentation. Many of you might have been there, in which I was introducing this idea of discovering and living from true purpose. And at the end of that meeting, I opened it up to questions, and one person began speaking. And when they began speaking, it sounded to me like it was a little bit critical. And I had a thought, and the thought was, I'm about to be attacked. So that thought, fortunately, I am not in the habit of believing my thoughts because I live what it is that I'm talking about. Have put all of this into practice for the last 12, 13 years. So because I know that this is life changing. This is absolutely essential. So I was sitting there and I had the thought this person is about to attack me. And I just watched that happen. And in just a moment, what happened was that this person was actually describing how much they had benefited from the things that I've shared, and that they were encouraging other people present to also work with, receive, and work with the things that I had shared. So I had completely misunderstood with that first thought. But if I had not been in the habit of slowing down, of having that mindful awareness, what would have happened? Something very different would have happened. And by the way, if that had happened, I would not have earned the right to have given that presentation in the first place. So, can you see how this could make a big difference in your life if you learned how to slow down enough that you could be aware and present without reacting to all the old programming? That can make a huge difference. So, of course, maybe that sounds great. You say, Joey, fine, sounds wonderful, fantastic. How do I do it? Right. So now when I say mindful awareness, for some people, that's going to conjure up the image of maybe a monk with a shaved head and saffron robes sitting in lotus posture in meditation for 8 hours a day. Right. And that might seem out of reach for you for good reason. So I'm going to share with you a way in which you can experience Zen like calm and awareness without having to stare at a wall for 8 hours a day. And this is a method that I call the active relaxation method. Many of you have heard me talk about this before, and you'll probably hear me talk about it many more times because it is so life changing. This is one of the most powerful things that I ever discovered. And I discovered this in 2012 when my life had reached a real critical turning point because I had been uh, killing myself with all of that stress for so many years. And it had gotten to a point where everything had fallen apart. My career had fallen apart, my friendships had fallen apart, and my health had fallen apart. For 2 years, I had been living with severe chronic health conditions. And I had gotten to a point where I was not sure that I was going to physically survive for much longer. So I knew that I needed to do something different, but I just didn't know what because I had searched high and low. I had tried everything under the sun, so I thought, and I hadn't found the answer yet. And that's when it came to me, which is this active relaxation method. What I realized was that I had been in the habit of giving so much attention to my thoughts, and I made this connection where I realized that actually there's a vicious cycle. The more that I was trying to solve the problem in my thoughts, the tenser I would get. And the more tension I had, the worse I felt, which then led me to believe that I had a bigger problem that I had to solve. So I would think about it some more, which would lead to more tension, which would lead to a greater sense of a problem. And round it would go. And I thought, well, that's not working. So what I tried instead completely changed my life. And that's the active relaxation method. Now, this method, which I'm going to describe to you now, really, when you really become skillful with it, it doesn't actually have any steps per se. But in order to describe it to you, and when you're initially getting started with it, it can be useful to understand it as having 3 steps. And those 3 steps are pause, scan, and release. So pause means, and you can do this right now as we're here together. So pause means that you simply notice you're here now and you can shift your attention to the sensations, the physical sensations occurring in your body. That's it. Just turn your attention to the physical sensations in the body. Scan means to gently and lightly, systematically scan through the sensations in the body. I like to do this from head to toe. You can do it whatever way makes sense to you. And then release means as you are systematically scanning through the sensations in the body to notice whatever it's possible to let go of. and to just let go of that. Now, importantly, release or letting go does not mean getting rid of. For many of us, the old habit is trying to get rid of, but that's actually what we need to let go of. We need to let go of that habit of trying to get rid of, trying to push it away, trying to avoid, trying to keep it, trying to grab it, trying to hold on, trying to get rid of all of that stuff. So we want to just notice whatever that unnecessary tension and effort is that we're making that we can let go of easily now. Only that. Even if it's just the smallest thing, even if it's nothing, that's perfectly fine. So just gently scanning and releasing, scanning and releasing, scanning and releasing. And as you do this, you'll immediately notice that that vicious cycle is interrupted. So there's an immediate benefit because that vicious cycle of constant worry, anxiety, stress, thinking about it, tension, and all the rest is leading to unending problems. So to interrupt that immediately makes a positive change. And as you continue to work with this method, things will continue to improve. You will discover that you can actually live with more ease, more relaxation, more peace. And you will notice that you have that ability with more space so that you don't have to react to everything. You don't have to believe your thoughts. You can simply be aware. You can be curious instead of assuming that any of it is true. So that is the active relaxation method. If you were to take nothing else away from this today, that is the number one thing that I recommend that you focus on. Because that one thing, when you apply it consistently every single day, will, I guarantee, will change your life for the better. There is no way that it could not. I know that it might seem like, really, that thing, that could help? It's so simple. If everybody, if it was that effective, everybody would know about it. I know, right? I mean, it seems like everybody should know about it because it's so simple, and yet they don't, surprisingly. But that's why I share this. That's why when I first discovered that, I started shouting it out from the hilltops, almost, I mean, metaphorically, not literally. That would have been a little insane. But I wrote books. I wrote a lot of books. I wrote books about it, describing it from every possible angle I could think of, trying to get the word out because I thought this is the thing that's going to change the world. I really did. I thought the world's just been waiting for this. Everybody is going to be so happy to receive this. It's going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. Yeah, it caught on a little bit, but not nearly like I thought it would. But I'm still here. I'm still here describing it. And for those who receive it, they consistently tell me, Joey, you're right. I didn't believe it at first, they tell me. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. Is that I thought that was sounded kind of silly, but I took your word for it because I trust you and I put it into practice. And lo and behold, it's changed my life. So I know it can change your life. It consistently works as long as you work it. So that's the first practical tip. So the second practical tip is, which, like the first one, this might seem like you might scratch your head at first and say, what on earth does that have to do with worry about what other people think, feel, and do? I promise you it does. And it is this: get clarity about what you really want. Get clarity about what you really want. You've probably heard me talk about this before because it's another one of those things that it's so simple and yet so powerful. And if only people would just consistently give even just 1 minute a day to this, it would really truly change their lives for the better. I'm constantly amazed at how people will work so hard in their lives. I mean, is there anybody here who doesn't work hard in your life? You all work hard in your life, don't you? In your own way. Everybody's working hard. Everybody's trying so hard. Don't tell me you don't. You work very hard. You might not work hard in the way of the world, but you work very hard in your own way. Everybody does. People are willing to do so much. They're willing to endure so much pain, so much struggle, so much anxiety. And yet they're not willing to take 1 minute a day just to focus on and write down what they want. And if they would, it would change things for the better. There would be less worry, less anxiety, less stress, more clarity, more peace of mind. So here's a story to an analogy to maybe explain this a little bit. So I want you to imagine that you are standing next to a pool, a swimming pool. You're at a party. There are lots of people at this party. It's a fancy party. Everybody's dressed up. And you look over to the pool, and to your surprise, you see that there is a person in that pool who is struggling, who is drowning. They don't appear to know how to swim, and somehow they found themselves in the deep end. Now, in that moment, are you going to let your concerns about what other people might think about you prevent you from saving that person's life? You gonna worry about will other people think that I'm silly? Will other people think that I'm disruptive? Will other people think I look foolish? Will other people judge me harshly for No, you won't. Of course you won't, because you have crystal clarity, don't you? In that moment, you know exactly what you want. You know exactly what is important. And so you act accordingly. You don't worry at all. That's what having clarity about what you want gives you. Does that make sense? You spend so much time worrying because you don't have clarity about what you want. Now, I know people are going to say, Joey, that's crazy. I know what I want already. And I'll say, no, you don't. You think you know what you want, but if you really knew what you wanted, you would not spend even a second worrying about other people. That's just the truth. And you can take it or leave it. I hope that you'll take it, because it really can change your life. Just think about it again. When you know for sure what really matters to you, you focus on that. You don't worry what other people's judgments are. You're not going to play small. You're not going to do any of those things any longer. When you know for sure what you want, when you know that it matters to you, when you know that it's important, you're just going to focus on that. That's the power of knowing what you really want. So, as I said, a lot of people think they know what they want, but they don't. They only know very superficially. And the difference between the superficial knowledge and the depth knowledge is a really big deal, because it's in those details where the difference is made. So you start where you are. You start today and you ask yourself, what do I really want? And write it down. This is really important. You've got to write it down. A lot of people will say, I don't need to write it down. I won't write it down. And the chances of you having success with this greatly diminish if you're not willing to write it down. If you're willing to write it down, your likelihood of success greatly increases. Such a simple action. All you have to do is write it down. Again, it amazes me that so many people will resist it. You write it down. And then you do this every single day. Again, people say, every single day? Why am I going to do it every single day? I already figured out what I want. I say, Joey, I already figured it out. I want a Maserati. What more do I need to know? What more do I need to know? They say. And I say, if that's working for you, if that's giving you the complete results, then fantastic. Then you've nailed it. You figured it out. But if it's not giving you the complete results, you haven't done it completely yet. And guess what? You are evolving. So therefore, your clarity and your desires are also evolving. So be willing every single day to commit just a minute at a minimum. I mean, just a minute. Is there anybody here who can't commit a single minute to something that could change their life every single day? Just 1 minute? How many minutes are there in a day? I didn't do that calculation in advance, so I don't know. But it's a lot of minutes. 1 minute is a very small fraction of the total number of minutes in a day. This could be one of the best investments that you could make of your time. So every single day you ask yourself, what do I really want? Write it down. And this is important, put it in order of priority. Because if you say, well, I want the Maserati, I want the house in Italy, I want the house in Costa Rica, I want the six-pack abs, I want the chocolate cake, I want the this, I want the new toaster oven, whatever, then you haven't put them in order of priority. Because I guarantee not all of those desires are equally important to you. And if you don't take the time to get clarity about that, then your mind's going to go all over the place, which means your energy, your power is going to be diluted, and you're going to have very little positive effect. You're not going to get any traction. You're going to feel defeated. You're going to be right back where you started. So you've got to put them in order of priority. Now, you want to relatively quickly get this down to your top one, two, or three maximum. Because more than that, and again, like I said, your energy gets diluted. You can't be effective that way. So you really want to get clear what is the most important to you, because when you have clarity about what's most important, then the rest of it can wait. So you've got to do that work. You got to be willing to do the work. It's not a lot of work. You just got to be willing to do it. And I promise you, put it to the test. Do that every single day for 30 days and come back and tell me. I bet if you're willing to do that every single day, sincerely, for 30 days, you're going to come back and you're going to tell me, thank you, that worked. But if it didn't, you let me know that too. I welcome all feedback. Um, so now, third tip is to know your values. So this is very much connected to this, the second tip. But the values are the wants behind the wants. And the reason why knowing your values matters is because a lot of the times people think that the ends justify the means, right? They think whatever's necessary in order to get what they think they want. Look at how this plays out in relationship. How many people, I mean, almost everybody wants to have, a loving, honest, caring relationship, right? Or relationships in general. But then look at how people go about trying to secure those relationships. They do it through manipulation, dishonesty, don't they? I mean, if you just tell the truth about it, there's a lot of that goes on. And then they wonder, why do they feel dissatisfied? Right? They've secured on the outside, on the surface, what they think they want, but they wonder, why do they feel empty? Why do they feel like something's not right? It's because they were not aligned with their values. So understanding what your values are is very, very important because that gives you a guide for how to live your life. Because it's not just about getting the thing in the end, it's about how you do it. It's about how you're living now. Remember what I told you with this really important truth that everything that you truly want and need is already within you. So your values are already actually within you, and you, in order to really experience the true satisfaction that you're looking for, you need to know what those are so that you can live in alignment with them. It's available to you. You just have to have clarity about it. Now, understanding your values, there are a couple of ways, many ways you could go about this. One way you could go about it would be to just simply ask yourself, what is it that I value? What are my values? And you could just write them down. Uh, Another way, which I think has its merits, so I'll propose it to you, even though it's a little bit more complicated. By the way, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you today. Don't worry about it. At the end, I'm going to give you a plan for how you can put this into action so that you can have absolute guaranteed results with it. Um, but the second way that you can determine what your values are is based on your wants. So in the second tip, I suggested getting clarity on what you want. I gave you a process for doing that. It's very, very simple. Now I'm suggesting you can actually find out what are the values that you want to fulfill for each of those wants, right? So if you say, I want $1 million, so that's your want. You can determine what are the values that you want to fulfill through that $1 million by asking a very simple yet powerful question, which is, when I have that, what will that give me? When I have that, what will that give me? I'll talk you through this with the example of $1 million. So if I have the desire, the goal of $1 million, I can ask myself, when I have $1 million, what will that give me? And my answer to that might be yet another. I would say that the $1 million is kind of a strategy. Does this make sense? A strategy. I think I want $1 million, but let's tell the truth. I'm not going to actually eat the $1 million. I'm not going to clothe myself with the $1 million, not directly, right? I might use it to buy things, but I'm not going to use the $1 million itself directly for nourishment or for shelter, or for clothing. So it's not that I want the $1 million per se. I want what the $1 million is going to give me. So I can continue to explore, what's that going to give me? So if I say, when I have the $1 million, what will that give me? And my answer might be something like, well, then I can pay off all my debt and have financial security. So then I could say, okay, and that's really interesting. And when I have financial security and I've paid off my debt, what will that give me? So we continue to ask this question. And I might say, well, then I would have peace of mind. Now, peace of mind, so peace is a pretty good indicator that I've arrived at what I would call a high level value. So high level values are those values that are already present within us, that are there unconditionally within us. We don't depend on anything external for them. So you can actually access peace within yourself without depending on anything else. If I need to have $1 million, that $1 million is outside of me, right? So that's not a high level value because that's outside of me. The peace is something that's inside of me. That's something I can access within me. So that's what I call a high level value. So we can continue to ask, what will that give you? Or what will that give me? Until arriving at these high level values. So high level values are usually expressed using words like peace, love, harmony, happiness, joy, abundance, uh, those kinds of words. Okay. Again, things that are available within you. And once you've determined the values that you want to fulfill, you can next put them in order of priority. I know I'm giving a lot of information, but this is such important stuff. See, I wanted to make sure that I give you a complete system because I want anybody who is here live or anybody who watches this on YouTube to have a complete system. I'm not expecting anybody who's going to walk away from here today and snap their fingers and be instantly enlightened and everything solved. But this is a complete system that when you work with this, this will give you what you're really looking for. So having clarity about your values and putting them in order of priority, the number one value, your top priority value, here's the secret. This is the power of it. When you know what that is the one thing you want. And when you put that first in your life, everything works. I'll tell you an example from my own life. See, this happened for me intuitively. I didn't know this question of what, when I have that, what will that give me? But intuitively, in 2012, when I was the time that I was describing to you a moment ago, when I was really in dire straits, at the same time when I discovered this active relaxation method, I also discovered that the only thing that really truly mattered to me in life was peace. Now, I'm not suggesting that should be your number one value, but I realized that was my core value. And I realized that I had a choice. And what this did for me was that anytime that I was experiencing something other than peace, it was a reminder that I had a choice and that what was most important to me was peace. So if I was getting stressed out about something, I would remember what's most important to me is peace. I have a choice. I can choose peace now. I can choose peace now. It's what's most important to me. When I choose peace, everything else works. If I don't choose peace, nothing works. That's the power of knowing what you most value. Because when you don't choose that, nothing works. It doesn't matter what you do in your life. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power, how much fame, how much adoration. Nothing will work until you are choosing that core value consistently for yourself. Conversely, when you consistently choose that core value, it does not matter what happens on the outside. I know that seems crazy, but it's true. And by the way, the paradox is that when you choose that core value, things on the outside tend to align for you. So things tend to happen more easily when you choose your core value. So that's the power of that. Is this too much? Fourth tip, practical tip, is what I call the rapid resolution method. Now, I also discovered this in 2012. In 2012, as I said, it was a very, very difficult time, very difficult time. And around the same time that I discovered the active relaxation method, I also discovered that I was struggling tremendously with things that I was afraid of or trying to avoid. I had a lot of things that I was afraid of and trying to avoid. Thoughts about people, memories, negative emotions, negative thoughts, on and on. So many things that I was trying to avoid because I felt afraid, uncomfortable. And I realized that was destroying my life. Now, the active relaxation method that I've already described to you did a tremendous amount to improve that. And in and of itself, the active relaxation method can completely take care of everything. However, what I discovered was that in addition to that, there is a way to get even faster results in resolving things of specific fears and aversions, hence the name rapid resolution method. And the two keys to this are number one, to realize that trying to avoid the thing only makes it worse, and therefore being willing to completely open to it is actually the solution. So that's one key. So you could just notice in your own life something that you constantly are trying to avoid, whatever that is, some fear, some old memories, some thoughts about a particular person, whatever it is that you try to avoid because you feel anxious, you feel afraid, you feel uncomfortable, whatever it is. And just notice the more you try to avoid it, the worse it gets. Isn't that true? The more you try to avoid it, how long have you been trying to avoid this? Years? It hasn't gone away. It's only gotten worse. So the key, this first key is to realize that instead of trying to avoid it, open to it completely. That's the first key insight. Second thing was that I realized that trying to just remain open to it, whatever it is, the thing that I've been trying to avoid in a sustained way for minutes or hours, didn't work particularly well. And so what I found instead that gives much faster and easier results is to only open to it as best as possible, just for a few seconds at a time, and then to just shift attention away and then to come back to it. Instead of trying to sustain attention to, this thing that I've been so trying to avoid and afraid of, I'm just going to remain open to it for an hour. That doesn't work. But I can just open to it as best I can within myself, within my own thinking, within my own emotions, just for a second or two. And then just shift attention to something else. It doesn't matter what. You could look around and count how many orange things you can see, or how many blue things, or how many squares, or you could ask yourself stupid trivia like, what's the capital city of Paraguay? You could you could even just count backward from 10 to 1. Anything that will take your attention momentarily away from whatever it is, and then you just repeat that. Does this make sense? So I'm just giving you a lot of information, high overview, but I wanted to give you a complete system. So anybody who comes back and reviews this and works with this knowledge will, I guarantee, absolutely change your life. So I'm just giving you the high level overview of each of these things. So I worked with the rapid resolution method to resolve, I had pretty severe OCD for a number of years in my life. And it had completely taken over my life. It was dominating my life. And I used the rapid resolution method to completely resolve that for myself. I'll give you another example. So when I first started coaching in 2013, this was basically the only method that I had because it was tried and true. I knew it because I'd used it. And so I was sharing this with other people who I coached. And one of the first people I coached, I'll call this person Samantha. It's not their real name, but just for the sake of anonymity. So Samantha had had a lot of physical symptoms that were triggered by common household and personal care product chemicals. And so Samantha was isolating herself even from her own family because of all of the symptoms that she was having, a lot of pain, rashes, all kinds of things. And so she was mostly just living in her own room, which was like this little bubble. And so when we first started working together, I shared with her this rapid resolution method. And within, I don't remember how long it was, but it was not a long time. I mean, it was within a matter of weeks. And this had been going on for her for years. Within a couple of weeks, all the symptoms were gone. She was back to living her life. In fact, it was not even back to living her life. She was living her life more fully than she had before. So I've seen this work for so many people for so many different kinds of things. So I know that this works. It can work for you as well. So for any specific fears or aversions, it's not absolutely necessary that you use this because, as I said, the active relaxation method by itself can give you the complete results. But when you use the rapid resolution method, it tends to give more rapid results in relation to specific fears and aversions. And just to make it clear, I mean, if you have worries about what other people think, feel, and do, you got some specific fears and aversions, right? So you can use the rapid resolution method on any worries, specific worries that you have about what other people think, feel, and do. If you fear that other people are going to judge you about whatever it is, about your appearance or about what you say or how you present something or whatever it is, you can use the rapid resolution method with that. Fifth practical tip is learning to differentiate between belief and truth. And this is really an extension of the first tip, the active relaxation method. But learning to differentiate between belief and truth is extremely useful because, as I said earlier on, most people are just unconscious of what they're even thinking. They just assume that whatever it comes across their mind, it must be the truth. That's just how things are. That's what's happening according to them. So as you slow down using the active relaxation method, you can begin to become aware of the thoughts that are actually crossing your mind. Until that, you can't even notice them. They're too fast. It's just happening unconsciously. But when you slow down, you start to notice those thoughts. So it's just like I was describing with that example where I talked about how I gave the presentation a month ago, and then somebody was speaking, and I had a thought, this person is about to attack me. If I had not slowed down enough, I couldn't have been aware of that thought. I would have simply reacted. But by being aware of that thought, then it's possible to question it. Now, here's the truth. Nothing that you think is actually the truth. What you think is all belief. The question is not whether what you think is belief or truth. The question is the belief useful or not? See, sometimes you have beliefs that align with your values and what you want, in which case, fantastic. That's pretty useful, right? If I have a belief, I can choose peace, and I value and want peace, then that's a really useful belief. But many of the thoughts, many of the beliefs that we have are not aligned with what we want or what we value. And so becoming aware of them and then questioning them, and a simple question you can ask is it useful? You don't even have to get into, is it true? I mean, you could ask that, and the truth would always be the case that it's not absolutely true. It's just your belief. But you don't even have to get mired in that because a lot of people will get confused. They'll say, well, I don't know, it seems true. That's a little bit more advanced. But you could at least ask, is it useful? Because it doesn't even matter whether, like I say, it's all belief. So it's not even a matter of whether it's true or not. It's just a matter, is it useful? If it's not useful, be willing to continue to just be still. Continue to work with the active relaxation method instead of reacting to the belief. Because if you react to the belief, you will only get yourself in trouble. You will only perpetuate the same vicious cycle that society has taught you, that you're not okay, that you're lacking, that there's something that you need outside of yourself, that you have to get love and approval and validation from other people and all the rest of it. So by slowing down, becoming aware of the thoughts, and then asking, is it useful? You save yourself from so many unnecessary reactions. You can learn to let other people be. Let other people have their opinions. Let other people say what they're going to say. Let them have their judgments. Let them do it. It doesn't have to mean anything to you. That's the truth. And that's how powerful this is. So, as I said, I recognize that I have just given you an enormous amount of information. I get it. And I know that for some of you, that can be overwhelming. And I don't want it to be overwhelming for you because I want you to be able to take action and get support. So if you stay in overwhelm, you won't take the action and you won't actually get the results. Okay, so I'm going to break this down for you and give you a plan of action so that you can get guaranteed results with this. I give you my word that if you follow the plan that I'm going to give you, you will get results. Okay. Now, I'm speculating that there are three groups of people here right now. I think that the first group of people, they are people who they're curious, they're interested. Maybe this is their first time here. They say, this is interesting. Who is this guy sitting in the sauna? It sounds like maybe some interesting information. Some of it seems true, some of it's challenging. And and that group of people, they're not quite ready just yet to commit to taking action and getting the results. And that's perfectly fine. We've all been there. You got to start where you are. I welcome you and invite you, if you're in that group, to just continue showing up and being curious and just seeing what fits, and try some of it on. And when you're ready, you will see the results. I promise you that. But just keep coming back, be curious. So if you're in that group, that's all that I have to say about that. Now, the other two groups of people that I'm imagining are here. Both of those groups, I think, are people who are ready and willing to take action in order to get results. They've had enough of the suffering and they want to do what it takes to get the results. Now, the difference between the two groups is this. I think one of them, they are, despite, even though they are absolutely ready and willing to do whatever it takes, they're not ready necessarily. They're not quite sure if it makes sense for them to make a financial investment in order to get more support with that. And that is exactly why I made this a very complete system today, because I wanted to make sure for those people, I give you everything. I did not hold anything back. I give you my word that if you work with this consistently, you will get the results. So that's why I laid it all out like this. So I completely understand. I've been there. We've all been there. Sometimes you just say, hey, I ain't got the cash. And that's just fine. You can get the results. When I first was starting, I had far less to work with and I got the results. So you already have a leg up with what I've just given you. Now, if you're in that group, then here's my suggestion to you. I suggest that you start with just one thing, just one piece at a time, and begin to integrate that consistently in your life and work with that consistently for at least 2 weeks, if not longer, until you really have a sense that that's integrated, and then move on to the next piece. So I suggest that you start with active relaxation. That would be my recommended starting point. You're free to choose differently if you feel intuitively guided to do so. But my suggestion, if you're in doubt, is start with active relaxation and make a commitment to putting that into practice every single day of your life from now on, at least once a day. Now, ideally, you'll do that anytime that you're experiencing stress. At first, that might be almost all day. So at least once a day, just make a commitment to that. Find a time. When will you do it? First thing in the morning, last thing at night. Hey, maybe you do it twice a day, first thing in the morning and last thing at night. But just find a time, commit to it, even if just for a minute, because it will start to reset things for you. It will help you to know that there is another way of living and being in this world. You don't have to be constantly stressed. It's actually possible to live in a different way, to slow down and to experience the profound benefits of that. So that's my recommendation. Once you've integrated that, then my recommendation would be move on to the second tip, which is to start that practice, that daily practice of taking a minute a day or longer if you want to write down, what do you want? Put it in order of priority. Okay. So just continue to work through in that way. Also, of course, I encourage you to come back to these meetings every week if you can. If you can join live, then we also have the group coaching sessions which follow, which are available freely to anybody who's here on Mondays. So if you can do that, then that's also a great opportunity, because you can ask questions. I can coach you through processes if you want right then and there. So that's available freely to anybody and everybody who shows up. And if anybody who's watching this on YouTube wonders how do you do that, you just go to my website, joeylott.com. You sign up there. There's an opportunity to get a free ebook. And along with that, you'll also get the information to join these meetings live on Mondays, so that you can also participate in the live group coaching sessions that are available here for anybody who shows up. So that's what I recommend for that group of people. Now, for the third group of people, you are people who realize that, hey, Joe, you might say, Joey, you put in a lot of time. You put in a lot of effort in order to figure this stuff out. And I don't want to wait that long. I don't want to have to put in that much time and do it the hard way. So I would like to be able to piggyback on your experience and get your support to get the results faster. So for those of you who are in that category, then what I have to share with you is an opportunity so that you can get my support to explore these things even further and get faster results. So if that sounds good to you, I'm going to share more information with you about that now. By the way, I am aware that sometimes there are some people who have some limiting beliefs around money that can be stressful for them. So I just want to address that right now. Sometimes I've heard this from people. People will say something like, Joey, you show up every single week and you deliver to us this awesome, free, life-changing content. But if every once in a while you make an offer that requires a financial investment, that means that you're all about the money and everything else that you've offered is invalid. Well, I'm sorry that sometimes people have that belief. And if you do have a belief like that, I hope that you can see that that's not actually serving you and you could choose to let that go now, because I have offered to you a complete system that you could work with and anybody could use that absolutely for free to get the results. But for people who want my support, then I have absolutely no problem getting financial remuneration for that. So here's what I'm offering. Actually, I put away my notes, but this is the point where I need them because I want to let you know about over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be offering a deep dive into not only this topic of how to free yourself from the habit of worrying about what other people think, feel, and do, but also more broadly to learn and discover how you can have more healthy and fulfilling relationships with life, with yourself, with all other people, including your friends, your neighbors, your children, your parents, and so forth and so on, everybody and anyone. And this is a course that I'm calling Relating Well. And so I'll just tell you what we're going to be covering in the 4 weeks. So in week one, I'm going to share with you how you can permanently shift your focus so that you can begin to experience peace and clarity moment to moment in your life. And that will allow you to immediately start to experience more fulfillment in your life. And that's going to give you more ability to have more, to make more harmonious choices in all of your relationships. So that's week one. Week two, I'm going to share with you exactly what you've been doing unconsciously your whole life that is sabotaging your personal and professional growth. And more importantly, I'm going to share with you a way in which you can change that so that you can begin instead to accelerate your growth. Week three, I'm going to share with you some simple yet profound questions, which are going to give you superpowers. These questions are going to allow you to actually unlock so many things for yourself. You're going to be very, very pleasantly surprised with that. And in week four, I'm going to share with you how you can begin to express yourself with clarity and transparency in all of your relationships. So those are the 4 weeks of Relating Well. Now, we're going to be meeting for the next 4 weeks, 2 hours every week, and we'll be meeting live. And these are going to be interactive workshops where you're going to actually get real results in the workshops. Change will happen in the workshops. If you're there live and you have questions, I'll be able to answer those questions. If you need to be coached through something, we'll be doing that right there in the workshops. Now, if you cannot attend live, it's no problem because I'll be recording everything and that will be available to everybody who's a member. So that is Relating Well. So Relating Well happening for the next 4 weeks. Now, it gets even better because Relating Well is happening within the container of Self Mastery Academy. So for those who don't know about Self Mastery Academy, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of that. So Self Mastery Academy includes, as I've already suggested, participation in Relating Well, which is that live course that's happening for the next 4 weeks. In Self Mastery Academy, I offer a new live course every single month. So when you are a participant of Self Mastery Academy, as long as you're a member, you get access to all of those classes, including the archives of all of the past classes. So, for example, last month was Living on Purpose, which was an exploration of discovering your true purpose and living from that true purpose. The month before that was Living Fearlessly, which was an exploration, a deeper dive on the rapid resolution method. So there's a whole archive of classes that are available to you when you join Self Mastery Academy. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll continue to be invited to participate in all of the live classes that happen month after month. Now, that's not even the best part because in Self Mastery Academy, the heart of it, according to me at least, is a group coaching program. So every week we meet for 2 hours. So this is separate from the live classes. Every week there's a live group coaching meeting that lasts for 2 hours in which anybody who's present, any question you have, any doubt, anything that you want to be coached through, we do that right there. And the amazing thing about these meetings is that oftentimes people who are present will have questions that you also have, but you didn't realize you had them. So when other people ask those questions, you'll get answers to those questions you didn't even know you had. Plus, the recordings of all of the past meetings are also available. So those archives are also included for all members of Self Mastery Academy. In addition to all of that, we also include an exclusive online community just for Self Mastery Academy. It is not a Facebook community. It's exclusive on my website, so there's no distractions or anything like that. And it's an awesome opportunity to be in community with other people who are of like mind, who are also doing the work. And of course, if you have any questions or doubts or anything that comes up, you're welcome to post them there and I can respond so that you don't even have to wait until the next group coaching call. Now, when you join Self Master Academy, you get all of that, and the total calculated value of that is $4,600. When you join today, it's only $97 per month. And I think you can see that that's an extraordinary opportunity. And if you want additional savings, we now have also quarterly and annual subscriptions. So quarterly is $197 per month, which is nearly a third off. And if you realize that you really want to be committed to this because you see the value of it and you want to continue to get that support month after month, if you want to join annually, it's $597 per month. That's $197 per quarter, and then $597 per year. So that's nearly half off if you decide that you want to join at the annual subscription rate. So if you do want to join, if you're here, then I'll just put the link in the chat if I have it. I think I have it, yes. That's at joeylott.com/join. And I'll also tell you that today we have a couple of opportunities, special opportunities. So we have 4 available seats for joining. If you're one of the first 4 people who join, you can get annual subscription for just $397 per year. So that's an additional $200 off the annual subscription rate. That's just for the first 4 people who join. And by the way, that's locked in. So if you join at that rate, you get that rate year after year. If you are not one of the first 4 people, then we're still offering a discounted rate of $497 per year. And again, you lock that in year after year if you join. That's $497 until 11:59 p.m. this Wednesday, which is, I have it on my paper here. I've got to consult it. August 20th, 2025. So that's because the first meeting of Relating Well is happening on Thursday. So anybody who joins before 11:59 p.m., that's U.S. Eastern Time, on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025, you can lock in that $497 rate. After that, it goes up to $597 per year. For anybody who's on the fence because they're thinking, sounds great, but how do I really know? What if it's not for me? Then I want to let you know that for every one of my programs, I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there's no risk to you. You can try it out for 30 days. And if it's not for you for any reason, even if you just decide, you'd rather use the money to buy Bitcoin or something, I'm happy to give you your money back. You just ask, and it's no questions asked. It's yours. So that's what I wanted to say about all of that. There's just a few more things here. We're also offering some exclusive bonuses for people who join before 11:59, before the end of the day Wednesday. So the first of those bonuses is a course called Peaceful Possibility. This is the first course that I ever created in this niche. This is in 2013. And in this course, I share some of the I share some techniques that allow you to achieve some of the things that I've talked about today. So there's a technique in there that is it's an earlier version of the rapid resolution method. So that's in Peaceful Possibility. That's the first bonus. Second bonus is discovering your authentic power. So this is another course, and this is a unique course in which it consists of a series of guided inquiries. These are unlike probably any other inquiries that you've done. They're not like exactly guided meditations. These are guided inquiries, and I think they're much more powerful than guided meditations. All you have to do is just listen and follow along, and you will experience benefits from doing so. And some of those benefits are that you can discover your authentic power. So that's the second bonus. And the third bonus is a course called Metaphysics, Magic, and Healing. This was a course that I offered in 2019 to a group of live participants, and this is the recording of that. And it's an exploration of, as the name suggests, it's a little bit provocative, metaphysics, magic, and healing. But it's an exploration of the interrelation of these things with consciousness. So that is the third bonus. And these three bonuses are not available anywhere else. So they're exclusive for people who join uh, before the end of the day Wednesday. So if you're interested in any of those, then that's another reason that you might want to consider joining before the end of the day Wednesday, in addition to getting those additional discounts on the annual subscription. Plus, if you decide that even if you join and then even if you decide that it's not for you and you want to get a refund, those three bonuses are yours to keep just for trying it out. So um, that's what I wanted to say about all of that. So, for those who are here live, we'll stay on for the group coaching. For anybody who's going to watch us on YouTube, who's still sticking around to now, um, come on in and join us in Self Mastery Academy. I think it's going to be, I think you'll have a lot of fun. I think you'll learn a lot. I think you'll grow a lot. It's a really awesome opportunity. I put it together because it's exactly what I wish that I had had all those years ago. It's what I couldn't find, and so that's why I offer it. I really want you to be able to get those benefits. So for if you're kind of on the fence and you're thinking maybe I don't know, just come on in. You can get your money back if it's not for you. So um, for those who are live, we'll stay on for group coaching. For everybody else, blessings to you. Bye for now. Take care.